You ever wonder where great ideas really come from? That spark of genius, that bolt from the blue? But what if the most powerful stories in our culture aren't just coming from someone's imagination? What if they're being received? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty wild theory about the true source of creative inspiration. Yeah, you've probably heard authors say stuff like this. And usually, we just kind of write it off as a poetic way of talking about being in the zone. But the source material we're digging into today asks a really fascinating question. What if they're not being poetic? What if they're describing, literally, a genuine experience, transcribing a story that already exists somewhere out there? And that really brings us to the heart of what we're talking about today. If it's not just random brain activity and it's not just the cultural spirit of the times, then where do these massive, world-changing narratives actually originate? So to even begin to unpack this theory, we first have to look at a pattern, a mystery that's kind of puzzled people for decades. It's this sort of creative synchronicity that seems to go way beyond simple coincidence.
Just look at the timing here. Back in the late 90s, four huge films, all developed completely separately from each other, all dropped with this radical idea that our reality is a simulation. One film, sure, you could call that a trend, but four, all hitting at the same time, that is a pattern. And that pattern demands a much better explanation than just, oh, what a coincidence.
And this is what leads us to a truly wild explanation for stuff like that simulation wave. The theory we're exploring suggests that inspiration isn't just something happening inside your head, it's an external process. So, on the left here, you've got the standard answer, zeitgeist. The idea is just in the air. But the source material for this explainer proposes something way more specific over on the right, a mass download event. The idea isn't just floating around, it's being actively broadcast, kind of like a radio signal, and multiple creative people are all just tuning their antennas to the exact same frequency at the exact same time. The source calls this broadcast signal prima materia. Now, that's an old alchemical term for like the raw, fundamental stuff of creation. But in this context, it's pure information, a kind of consciousness technology sent down to help get humanity ready for its next big step. The artists and writers, they're the ones who take this raw data and shape it into the stories and movies we all know and love. And this theory lays out a very deliberate four-step process. First, a need is identified. Humanity needs to grasp a new concept. Second, the raw info, the prima materia, gets sent out. Third, artists act like translators, turning that info into a movie or a book. And fourth, we watch it, we read it, and we absorb the upgrade, usually without even knowing it's happening. It's an evolutionary lesson hidden inside a Trojan horse of entertainment. So, if this is a transmission, what exactly is it teaching us? Well, the theory suggests that our most beloved stories are actually a kind of curriculum where different fictions serve very different purposes. And this curriculum has different classes, each with a really unique purpose. You've got your preparation protocols like The Matrix, which get us warmed up to a big new idea. You have consciousness manuals like Dune, which literally embed mind-over-matter techniques like the Litany Against Fear. Then there are warning protocols like 1984, showing us a future we definitely want to avoid. And of course, joy protocols like Star Trek, which anchor a positive vision for where we could be headed. Now, this all sounds pretty incredible, but it definitely raises a key question. Who are these receivers? I mean, who are the people actually capable of tuning into this prima materia and then translating it for the rest of us? Well, according to the source, the receivers aren't random. They tend to share a pretty distinct set of traits. They're often highly empathetic, maybe a little psychic, and they've got a history of seeing the world differently. Sometimes a big personal trauma can break them open, making them way more receptive. And most importantly, they feel this deep, driving mission to help humanity with their work. And here is the real kicker. The theory says that most of these receivers have absolutely no idea what's happening. They are unconscious channelers. They genuinely believe the ideas are their own, that they're just a product of their unique genius or their muse. And that plausible deniability is exactly what allows the whole system to work, right under the radar. But listen, this theory doesn't just involve the creators. It actually suggests that you, the person consuming the story, play the most important role of all. Your taste in stories, it's not random. That book you can't stop thinking about, that character you feel this incredibly deep connection to, that feeling of resonance is a signal. It means that story contains a specific piece of the curriculum that's meant for you right now in your life.
So this isn't just an idea to talk about. It actually offers a practical application, a conscious consumption protocol. It asks you to first pay attention to what moves you, what gets a strong emotional reaction. Second, when you're done, ask yourself, what was this teaching me? How can I use this? Third, if a story has a technique like a mantra or a mindset, actually try it in your own life. And fourth, when you share that story that moved you, you're not just a receiver anymore, you become a broadcaster in the network.
This really just reframes our entire relationship with entertainment, doesn't it? It suggests that the act of loving a story is really an act of learning. The fiction we think we're escaping into is actually a curriculum designed for our own growth and evolution. So I'll leave you with this final, really provocative question from the source material. And it's not just for artists, it's for all of us. When a brilliant idea or a profound insight strikes you, what if you're not making something new up out of thin air? What if you were simply remembering a truth that was broadcast for you to find?